In the dimly lit basement of a forgotten archive in Belgrade, dust particles dance in the thin beam of light that pierces through a small window. Here, among thousands of yellowed papers and fragile notebooks, lies a truth so profound that it has been deliberately hidden from humanity for nearly 9 decades. I am about to share with you the extraordinary discovery that will forever change how we perceive the boundary between life and death. Nikola Tesla, brilliant, misunderstood, and perhaps the greatest scientific mind to have walked this earth, left behind more than just patents and electrical innovations. Hidden within his personal journals, encoded in mathematical formulas and encrypted notes, Tesla documented his most sacred work, the scientific proof that death is merely a transition of energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, Tesla wrote in a document dated November 1934. And consciousness, my dear friends, is the purest form of energy we know, a vibrational pattern that transcends the limitations of the physical vessel. These words weren't mere philosophical musings. Tesla approached the question of consciousness and its continuation after physical death with the same methodical precision he applied to his electrical experiments. The recently uncovered papers reveal that during the last decade of his life, Tesla constructed a series of devices designed to measure what he called the soul frequency, the unique electromagnetic signature emitted by living beings. I have detected, his trembling handwriting states, that when the physical body ceases function, the energetic pattern does not dissipate as conventional science would suggest. Instead, it undergoes a fascinating transformation, a shift to a higher frequency beyond our standard instruments' detection capabilities. Why were these documents concealed for so long? The answer lies in the geopolitical chaos that followed Tesla's death in January 1943. Within hours of his passing, American intelligence agents seized most of his papers from his New York hotel room. What few people know is that a significant collection remained with Tesla's nephew, Sava Kosanovich, who secretly transported them to Yugoslavia. The communist regime, recognizing the potential ideological disruption Tesla's spiritual scientific discoveries could cause, buried these documents in classified archives. They remained there, untouched, until the political changes of the 1990s created an opening for dedicated researchers to finally access them. Tesla's most revolutionary discovery challenges everything we've been taught about our existence. In a series of experiments conducted between 1932 and 1942, he developed sensitive instruments capable of detecting subtle electromagnetic fields. What he found astonished even his brilliant mind. The human body, he noted, emits a consistent electromagnetic signature that varies in frequency depending on emotional and mental states. But most remarkably, this signature does not vanish upon death. It transforms into a higher vibrational state that resonates with what ancient mystics have described as the universal energy field. Tesla wasn't merely theorizing. His meticulous recordings show systematic experiments with plants, insects, and eventually mammals. In each case, his instruments detected the shift in energy patterns at the moment of transition we call death. The energy didn't disappear. It changed form, frequency, and vibration. Death, Tesla concluded, is not an ending, but rather a transition from one energetic state to another. The soul, or what I prefer to call the conscious energy matrix, continues its journey beyond physical constraints. Most astounding was Tesla's belief that he had found mathematical proof for what spiritual traditions have taught for millennia. The equations, scrawled across his private journals, show his attempt to unify quantum mechanics with his own theories of electromagnetic resonance to explain consciousness as a non-local phenomenon, one that exists beyond the confines of our brain and body. What Tesla discovered in his final years went far beyond conventional science. It ventured into realms where quantum physics and spiritual awakening become one unified truth. The documents reveal that by 1936, Tesla had constructed what he called the Etheric Resonance Amplifier, a device so advanced that modern scientists are only now beginning to understand its principles. The universe, Tesla wrote in his private journal, is not composed of matter as we perceive it, but of conscious energy in constant vibration. My amplifier has detected what can only be described as the voice of consciousness itself, pulsing, alive, and persistent beyond bodily death. Oi, The recently uncovered papers detail a series of extraordinary experiments conducted in secret locations. Tesla had arranged specialized chambers lined with materials that could block external electromagnetic interference. Inside these chambers, he placed his most sensitive equipment, devices capable of detecting energy fluctuations at the quantum level. What makes these experiments particularly remarkable was Tesla's methodology. He invited terminal patients who had accepted their imminent transition to participate in his studies. With their full consent and understanding, he measured their energy fields before, during, and after their physical passing. Subject 7, Tesla noted in one document, showed remarkable coherence of electromagnetic patterns until precisely 4.3 minutes after clinical death was pronounced. At this exact moment, my instruments detected not a cessation, but a dramatic frequency shift. The pattern accelerated and harmonized, exhibiting characteristics that can only be described as heightened consciousness, freed from physical limitations. These observations led Tesla to formulate his controversial consciousness continuity theory. So, he proposed that what we experience as consciousness is actually a localized expression of a universal energy field, one that our physical bodies temporarily tune into, like radios receiving a broadcast signal. Death, in this framework, is simply the body's inability to continue receiving the signal, while the signal itself continues to exist. I have proven, Tesla declared in notes dated October 1937, that consciousness operates on principles similar to non-locality in quantum mechanics. It is not confined to the brain, but rather uses the neural network as an interface with physical reality. When this interface fails, consciousness returns to its natural state, unbounded by time or space. Perhaps most intriguing were Tesla's references to unexpected communications he received during these experiments. The documents describe instances where his instruments detected organized patterns that could not be attributed to random energy fluctuations. Tesla became convinced he was receiving intentional communications from what he termed the other side of the frequency spectrum. "These are not random energetic discharges," he wrote with evident excitement. "The mathematical probability against such organized patterns occurring by chance is astronomical. I am being contacted by consciously directed energy, souls, if you prefer the ancient terminology, existing in higher vibrational states." Tesla's work took an even more profound turn when he began documenting correlations between these communications and ancient spiritual texts from diverse traditions. He was particularly fascinated by similarities between his electromagnetic findings and descriptions in Vedic texts about prana, Buddhist concepts of consciousness, and esoteric Christian teachings about the nature of the soul. "What the mystics have intuited for millennia," Tesla noted, "I have now measured with scientific instruments. The wisdom traditions of humanity have been describing this energy transition all along, albeit in symbolic language rather than mathematical equations." By 1939, Tesla had created detailed mappings of what he called consciousness frequency bands, specific electromagnetic signatures associated with different states of awareness, from ordinary waking consciousness to profound meditative states, and ultimately to the liberated consciousness he detected after physical death. Death, Tesla concluded in one of his most profound passages, is merely a doorway between frequency states. Fear of death arises from ignorance of this fundamental truth. We do not end, we transform, ascending to higher vibrational existence that religions have imperfectly called heaven, nirvana, or enlightenment. These revelations were deemed too disruptive for a world on the brink of global war, a world that powerful interests preferred to keep materialistic, fearful, and spiritually disconnected. Among the most astonishing revelations in Tesla's recovered documents are what he termed the interdimensional dialogues, systematic communications he claimed to have received from consciousness existing beyond our physical dimension. These weren't the product of spiritual mediumship or trance states. Tesla approached these communications with rigorous scientific methodology, using his advanced equipment to detect and decode what he described as intelligent energy patterns originating from beyond the frequency threshold of physical existence. "What I am about to document," Tesla wrote in a leather-bound journal dated December 1940, "will be dismissed as the ravings of a deteriorating mind. Yet every word that follows is supported by empirical data recorded by my instruments. I have established consistent communication with intelligences existing in higher vibrational states, beings who once inhabited physical bodies like our own. The documents reveal that Tesla developed a sophisticated apparatus he called the quantum resonance translator, a device combining electrical coils, vacuum tubes, and crystalline structures arranged in precise geometric patterns. This machine could supposedly detect subtle energy fluctuations and convert them into comprehensible data. Most remarkably, Tesla claimed the device could transmit energy patterns back, creating a two-way communication channel. The entities I communicate with, Tesla noted, explain that what we call death is actually an awakening, a release from the limited perceptual framework imposed by physical senses. They describe existence beyond the body as exponentially more vibrant, conscious, and interconnected than our current state. According to Tesla's meticulous notes, these communications revealed that consciousness exists as a spectrum of vibrational frequencies. Our physical experience represents only a narrow band within this spectrum, what Tesla called the materialization frequency. Death, from this perspective, is simply a shift to higher frequency bands, where consciousness experiences greater freedom, expanded awareness, and deeper connection with what might be called the universal intelligence. They have shared, Tesla wrote with evident awe, that the universe itself is a vast consciousness field, self-aware and perpetually evolving. What we perceive as empty space is actually teeming with intelligent energy. Every atom, every particle, is an expression of this universal consciousness, individuated yet inseparably connected to the whole. Perhaps most revolutionary were Tesla's recordings of specific frequency patterns associated with different emotional and mental states. He documented that feelings of love, compassion, and profound spiritual connection generated coherent, harmonious energy signatures that resonated with the higher frequency bands. Conversely, states of fear, hatred, and spiritual disconnection produced chaotic, dissonant patterns that anchored consciousness to lower vibrational states. The ancient wisdom traditions, Tesla observed, have been correct all along in their emphasis on love and compassion as the highest spiritual virtues. These are not merely moral imperatives, they are the vibrational states most closely aligned with our true nature as consciousness beyond the body. The communications also addressed why such profound knowledge had been obscured throughout human history. According to Tesla's notes, powerful interests have long understood that human consciousness, when trapped in fear and materialistic concerns, is more easily controlled and exploited. A humanity awakened to its true nature as immortal, interconnected consciousness would be ungovernable by force or manipulation. The suppression of this knowledge, Tesla wrote, has been the greatest conspiracy against human potential. Those who glimpse these truths have been marginalized as mystics, madmen, or heretics. Yet the evidence for consciousness beyond death is encoded in the very fabric of reality, accessible to anyone with the right instruments and the courage to see beyond conventional limitations. By 1941, Tesla claimed to have mapped what he called the topography of after-death states, different vibrational levels that consciousness might experience after physical transition. He noted striking correlations between these mapped states and descriptions found in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, ancient Egyptian funerary texts, and esoteric Christian mysticism. The information provided by these communications, Tesla concluded, presents humanity with its greatest opportunity for evolutionary advancement. We stand at the threshold of a new understanding that unifies science and spirituality, revealing them as complementary approaches to the same fundamental truth. Consciousness is the primary reality, and its journey continues beyond the illusion we call death. These revelations prove too threatening to the materialistic worldview dominating Western science and the power structures it supported. When Tesla died in January 1943, these particular documents were the first to be confiscated and hidden from public view. The most transformative section of Tesla's recovered documents contains what he called the Ascension Protocols, practical applications of his discoveries that could potentially revolutionize humanity's relationship with life, death, and consciousness itself. These protocols weren't merely theoretical constructs, but precise methodologies developed through years of experimentation an interdimensional dialogue. "I have been entrusted," Tesla wrote in his final journal dated December 1942, just weeks before his death, "with knowledge that could liberate humanity from its most primal fear, the fear of cessation. What follows are not philosophical speculations, but precise vibrational technologies that anyone can implement to prepare consciousness for its inevitable transition and evolution." At the core of these protocols was Tesla's discovery that consciousness could be intentionally tuned to higher frequency bands, even while still embodied. Through specific practices involving breath, visualization, sound, and electromagnetic exposure, Tesla documented methods to systematically elevate one's vibrational state, essentially practicing the death transition while still alive. "The ancient mystics called it enlightenment," Tesla noted, "but I have measured it as a specific electromagnetic frequency, a state where human consciousness harmonizes with the higher vibrational bands it will naturally inhabit after physical death. This state can be achieved through consistent practice, allowing one to become familiar with expanded consciousness before the final transition." The documents detail 7 primary frequency bands that Tesla identified, each corresponding to distinct states of awareness. Most remarkable was his finding that the highest attainable frequency, while physically embodied, what he called the unified consciousness frequency, was identical to the baseline frequency his instruments detected in consciousness after death. "This proves," Tesla wrote, "that enlightenment, as described by spiritual traditions, is literally a pre-death experience, consciousness already operating at the frequency it will naturally achieve upon physical transition. The masters throughout history have simply been those who accomplished this frequency shift while still embodied." Tesla's protocols include precise methods for frequency meditation, using specific sound tones to entrain brain activity to higher vibrational states; electromagnetic field harmony, exercises to consciously attune one's personal electromagnetic field with universal energy patterns; quantum consciousness bridges, visualization techniques that establish neural pathways to access non-local awareness; transition preparation, specific practices to be implemented when approaching physical death to ensure optimal frequency shift. Perhaps most controversially, Tesla documented what he called post-transition communication protocols, methods by which those who had physically died could establish contact with embodied consciousness. These weren't spiritual or mediumistic techniques, but precise electromagnetic practices based on frequency resonance. Communication across the frequency threshold, Tesla explained, is not mystical but mathematical, a matter of establishing resonant harmonic connections between different vibrational states. With proper training and equipment, dialogue between the embodied and post-physical states can become as normal as any other form of communication. In his final entries, Tesla addressed the profound implications of his discoveries for human civilization. He envisioned a future where death would be understood not as an ending, but as a graduation, a welcome transition to expanded states of being that one prepares for throughout physical life. When humanity embraces this knowledge, he predicted, everything will change. The materialistic paradigm that has dominated science will collapse under the weight of evidence. Religions will be transformed as their metaphorical descriptions of afterlife states are validated through direct experience. Most importantly, the fear that underlies so much human suffering and limitation will dissolve in the light of direct knowing. Tesla's vision extended beyond individual transformation to planetary evolution. He suggested that as more humans consciously raised their vibrational frequency, the collective consciousness field of Earth itself would shift, creating what he called a resonant evolutionary acceleration, a tipping point that would facilitate easier access to higher states for all humanity. "We stand at a crucial juncture," were among Tesla's final written words. "The knowledge I leave behind is not mine. It belongs to humanity. Those who resonate with these truths will be drawn to them when the time is right. The great transition awaits us all, not as an end, but as the true beginning of our conscious evolution. Death is not a tragedy, but a doorway, one that leads to greater life, expanded awareness, and the remembrance of our true nature as eternal interconnected consciousness." Tesla signed his last entry with a statement that perfectly encapsulated his unified vision of science and spirituality. Energy never dies, it only transforms, and we are, in our essence, conscious energy eternally becoming. The suppression of these documents for nearly 9 decades speaks to their revolutionary potential. Now, as they finally emerge into public awareness, humanity faces a profound choice: to remain bound by outdated materialistic paradigms, or to embrace the liberating truth that Tesla sacrificed everything to preserve. Death is merely a transition of energy, and consciousness continues its journey beyond the physical realm. If these revelations about Tesla's hidden discoveries have awakened something within you, this is only the beginning of our journey together. The knowledge of consciousness as eternal energy has been suppressed for too long. Subscribe now to continue exploring these profound truths in our upcoming videos, where we'll dive deeper into Tesla's energy protocols and practical applications for spiritual awakening. Share your experiences and thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters in this collective awakening. Remember, as Tesla discovered, we are all interconnected in this vast field of conscious energy. Hit that notification bell to ensure you don't miss the next chapter in humanity's greatest untold story. The truth about our immortal nature deserves to be shared. Spread this wisdom by liking and sharing this video with those ready to transcend the illusion of death.